What's up, folks, and welcome to Ralph Reads, brought to you by TURN, the United Ronin Networks. My name is Ralph Anthony Garcia, also known as R4. The legal, the loyal, the regal, the royal, Ronin Ralph, your master of ceremonies. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe. Tell a friend to tune in to TURN, the United Ronin Networks. We are Ronin. Today on Ralph Reads, we will proceed with the incomparable young lady, Sister Souljah's second story via this 6th volume entitled Midnight, a Gangster Love Story. Yes, let's keep it intense and let the reading commence. Chapter 24. In our Brooklyn apartment, late, clothes and cloths hung on hangers everywhere. There were white sheets laid across the length of our living room, a strategy Uma used to keep the cloth she was working on clean. Uma was seated on the floor with 6 yards of a brilliant red cloth laid across her lap and an open box of beads, sequins, and tiny jewels. The lampshades have been removed from our 3 lamps. The 100-watt bulbs were radiating blinding light and extra heat. I knew she was really doing it. When she gets in this intense creative state of mind, she stares at the cloth as if she sees something there that no one else sees. She pulls out her spool of gold thread. She lifts up her needle, threads it the first time without missing the impossible needle eye. One by one, she sews on the beads, sequins, and jewels in a pattern that only she has in her mind. With great patience, she sews on 500 to 5,000 sand adornments, never breaking her pattern until the thobe is perfect. I removed my sneakers and walked around the perimeter of the living room wearing socks, not saying too much, trying not to break Uma's concentration. Before I could reach the door to Naja's room, Uma stopped everything and looked up at me. I was disappointed with myself for being in her way. I knew that whenever I was in the same room with her, she began to focus on me.
You'll need some rest tonight. The next 8 days will be a habloob,
Uma said, which means in our Sudanese Creole, a sandstorm.
Tomorrow, I will need you to place the fruit order at the wholesaler. Go there and make sure that everything there is fresh, completely fresh. If it turns out to be a quality wholesaler, inshallah I will, place out orders and make sure he schedules the delivery to arrive on Sunday morning, the morning of the wedding, fresh. Double check, since the wedding will be held on a Sunday. Some of these businesses are closed on Sundays and I don't want the fruit to be delivered on Saturday.
No problem. If their fruit or the delivery date is no good, I know a couple of other places to try out, I assured her.
And while you were at basketball practice, I spoke to Tamara Auntie,
Uma said, referring to Mr. Ghazali's wife. I could see that from working together, she was feeling much more friendly with the first Sudanese family that we'd met here in America. I'm sure she was also relieved to be working for people who spoke her language. Because of this, she was handling more responsibilities than usual, jobs normally reserved for me.
Miss Tamara will arrange for the groom and you to meet and visit a variety of jewelers. His father and his uncle will not be able to accompany him. They are both working and unavailable. You'll need to stick with him until he makes his final purchases. I know that you know Jules. I promised Tamara this,
she said, very sure of me.
When you accompany him shopping, just think of it as if you were purchasing these jewels for your own bride,
she said, so soft and calm and clever, while looking at a gold bead smaller than a child's teardrop. I smiled. No problem, Uma. I'll do it.
You have their telephone number. Do it on Monday. This way, if the groom turns out to be stubborn or to have poor taste, we will have time to save the situation before the signing of the Ajid. Oh, and I will need you to come along to the mosque for the ceremony,
she said. The wedding? I asked.
No, not exactly. A Sudanese wedding takes place over several days. The signing of the Ajid is the contract between the groom and his new wife and both of their families. It will be a much smaller ceremony than the actual wedding, but it is extremely important. You see, when you choose or your family chooses your bride, it is the marrying of the two families together. It is not just one person doing whatever or however he pleases,
she said. And then there was silence. The Uma kind of silence.
So what did you do today before you came to pick me up?
She asked so sweetly and so full of innocence. I saw Akemi. I went to her uncle and aunt's home in New Jersey, a very nice place. But the aunt and uncle were not there, I said. Then I explained about the aunt being a surgeon and the uncle being away on work. I knew that Uma would disapprove of my visit to Akemi's family's home without the elders being present. I knew she would look down on the elders for allowing it. Then Uma responded with one of her truth-filled bombs.
Not everyone in the world believes the same beliefs, she said. But I know that what we believe is true. Allah has given us a way of doing everything. It is a way that is right for any people who want what is best for everyone over what they may think is best for only themselves.
I'll get you some water, I said, walking to the kitchen to keep my brain from exploding. I came with 2 glasses of water, both filled with ice. I thought of my father, who never took ice in any drink. He disliked ice and air conditioners or anything like that. In 100-degree weather, he seemed to feel cool and easy.
She can come,
Uma said, bringing me back to the here and now. Who? I asked, blindsided.
Akemi. We will let her see what we believe and how we live at the signing of the Ajid. We will watch and wait to see how she feels about it,
Uma said. What could I do besides agree with Uma? Of course I wanted to see Akemi as much as possible.
So the two of you were alone in her uncle's house?
Uma asked. No, Akemi's grandmother, cousin, and her 2 brothers and 2 of their friends were there too, I said truthfully, but feeling like I just lied.
Very well,
Uma said, returning her attention to her work. In Naja's room, the lime green lights of her alarm clock read 1:15 a.m. She was asleep under one sheet and one very light blanket with her quilt turned down at the foot of her bed. Her book bag was packed and placed in the corner as usual. The glow-in-the-dark stars and crescents on her bedroom ceiling were all lit up. Everything was good with her, so I closed the door.
Naja has been saying that she needs to spend more time with you. I reminded her that we are all working hard when we are away from home,
Uma said. On Sunday, I will keep her right by my side. I'll make her feel special even when I'm working, I promised. In my bedroom after my shower, I turned the volume down and pushed the button to play my voicemails. I wrote down the new business inquiries and contacts into a small notebook I used. Amir's familiar and excited voice was the last message. It came through at a greater volume than everyone else's voice. Yo, Wednesday night, me, you, Chris, and the girls. Say no, and I swear I'll bring all 3 of them to the dojo. Hit me back. You know the digits. I looked at the clock, realizing how few hours I actually had remaining before I would have to wake up and hit the pavement. I lay still, surrounded by darkness. Akemi's pretty eyes came to mind. I thought about her touch. For me, she was more than a sexual desire, although that desire was strong and real, and growing stronger with each day. I liked her whole style, admired her talent, respected her thoughts, and was completely drawn into the way she went about showing me love too. I felt a genuine love growing that was never within me for any person outside of my family. It was a completely new and different kind of love, and a real good feeling. I felt possessive over her. I wondered what she was doing right then. I wondered how long Rob and Dave stayed in the house along with her. I wondered if she was talking with that fool, Rob, or not. I wondered if she was talking to any man, period, who wasn't her blood relation. It all mattered to me. It all mattered to me. It all mattered to me now, and really, I wanted her right here by my side. I heard my doorknob turning. Uma was standing there now, stepping halfway into my darkness and halfway remaining in her light.
I want you to know that there is a reason why in our faith we hold back from making love until we are married,
she said softly. I was thinking to myself, how could it be possible for her to know my unspoken, intimate, and private thoughts?
Once a man has knowledge of a woman's body, almost nothing or no one can stop him from seeking that pleasure over and over and over again. You should not pretend that you are the first man in the world to be feeling what you are feeling right now. You have to acknowledge that there were millions of men who lived before your life was even a thought. The outcome of your feelings and experiences is already clear. Your love-making will bring forth new life. New life is a beautiful blessing, but should be brought forth into a complete family, a mother and father, a husband and wife, and both of their families also. New life should come after the union of marriage is secured. Allah requires this from us, and Allah is the best knower of all things. Allah has arranged it, that if the believers follow true to the Quran, they will experience better lives. Don't be stupid like the American boys who pretend to be shocked when their women become pregnant and then run far away. Never accept women like the American girls who have sex with anyone, then make all of their babies disappear.
A silence fell. What about condoms? I asked. My eyes and embarrassment were both shielded by the darkness of my room. I wished I were talking to my father right now instead of Uma. I remembered Amir's father's advice about sex and condoms.
Do you think you will stop your feelings each and every time to put one on?
She asked me comfortably.
It would be easy for you to do if you don't know, don't love, and don't trust a girl who you with. But where there is real love and deep feelings, it will feel too good. You'll go in naturally over and over and over again, and natural life will be born. What then? She asked,
still leading the conversation.
Are you prepared to marry and bring forth new life with this girl? Is she the one for you? For us? Or will you touch her, then abandon her like the men in this country who abandon their families so easily?
I knew what Uma was saying and asking me to consider was right. And I knew that whatever I chose to do meant the world to her. But at that moment, I felt like 5 different things. A boy, a man, a Muslim, an African, and a son trying to grow up in America without being fucked up like everybody else. Chapter 25. Fawzi pulled out his brown Dunhill wallet and flipped it open. There were 8 slots inside. I checked out that each of the 8 slots carried credit cards, beginning with his American Express black card. The Indian jeweler, whose genuine dark gold and elegantly designed thick white bangles we selected, was patient and pleasant, but firm. He was the sixth jeweler we had visited that day. We left the arrogant Arabs in Brooklyn. We fled from the jive Jews in Manhattan and landed in Queens with the dark man from India who understood how to take his customers into the back room and line his bangles up on a soft black velvet cloth, unafraid that we were gonna jump up and scream, "This is a hold-up, motherfucker! Get on the floor!" Of course, he had an armed guard in his place, who was definitely another Indian, I guessed, probably one of his cousins, but I respected that. Discount is always possible with cash. Cash is always good, he said, smiling swiftly and rocking his head from side to side the way Indians tend to do. Then he pulled back to seriousness. Each gold bangle cost somewhere in the vicinity of $600. 4Z had selected 10 bangles, each with a different design. I had already pushed the jeweler to apply a 10% discount because of the quantity of the purchase. The total price tag for the 24-karat gold bangles was now at $5,400. The 10 diamond bracelets that 4Z then selected cost somewhere in the vicinity of $6,000 for each one. I sat blank-faced, but in shock of how easily 4Z made decisions. I wondered if the jeweler really expected us to spread almost $65,000 in cash onto his glass counter. "Easy," 4Z told the jeweler. "You have already applied the 10% discount for my overall purchase, so I don't mind paying the tax for the jewels. I will also need a receipt. I will have everything appraised and insured in any case." He slid his black card onto the counter. Before the Indian jeweler could cast any doubt, he slid his driver's license next to the card. I saw that both 4Z and his father's name were on his credit card. The jeweler ran his credit. It was only then that I felt fucked up. Not about 4Z, but about myself. I mean, I was seated there with a pocket filled with my own hard-earned cash, but 4Z had legitimacy and backup. He was in a position I should be in easily, a son fully set up and financed by his father. A son who still studied hard and worked nonstop and pushed hard to make his own name in his world. He must love this woman a lot, I thought. Even if his father is backing up his spending, it was still a lot of paper to drop in one sitting. As the jeweler cleaned and boxed the jewels and prepared the paperwork, 4Z turned to me and said, "I think you are right. My new wife is going to love these jewels more than she loved me," he smiled. He was wearing a tan leisure suit and hard shoes. He was much more confident and laid back than I had expected. He could flow in Arabic, English, or Sudanese Creole, although he spoke English the majority of the time. The jeweler returned with the cases, opened them one last time to reassure us, closed them, locked the clasp on each of the boxes, and placed each case into one black velvet sack. He put the sack inside a gold-embossed shopping bag. He asked, "Do you need an escort to your car?" He glanced at his armed guard. No, we're good." I stood up and answered for 4Z. I took the shopping bag, turning to 4Z and saying, "Let me carry this for you." "Don't try to get away," 4Z joked. "You are probably much faster than me, but I am a long-distance runner. Way after you run your fastest race and run out of breath, I'll keep coming and find out wherever you're at." He laughed. I didn't. "And when you do catch up with me, what will you do?" I asked him solemnly. I saw he felt a wave of intimidation. He was 6 feet. I was 6'1". "Lighten up, I was just joking. My uncle told me that you are the perfect businessman. Solid, reliable. I trust you," 4Z said, still smiling. I remember then how comfortable money, family, and status makes a male youth feel. I relaxed some. I had about 50 questions I wanted to ask him. He was 24 years old. I calculated from the birth date on his driver's license. He was only 10 years older than me. He must have felt some of my same feelings about a female, or gone through some of my similar situations. He was already fully established. He was from my country and my religion. Maybe he'd tell me something different than the shit that everyone else here was talking that didn't sound right in my ear. I wanted to know if he was fucking these American girls while he was living up in Massachusetts, or if he was waiting until marriage, the way Muslim men and women are supposed to do. I wanted to know if he kept one secret girlfriend up there with him, and if he did, what would he do with her after his wedding? Would he cut her off? Did he love her? What did his father require from him? I knew I needed to think before I spoke. I knew I had to put my words together right to ask about women, marriage, and personal things that every young man wants to know and should learn from his own father. I knew this would probably be the last time that I saw Fawzi, and alone and man to man. After this, he would be swept into a wedding whirlwind and begin his new life. Outside we walked. He suggested McDonald's. I think he thought it was for my benefit. I laughed and directed him to a nearby Thai restaurant. It was 4:30 now. I had just enough time to have an early dinner with him, then deliver him and the jewels to his father. Before we were seated, I placed a call to his uncle, Mr. Salim Ahmed Amin Ghazali, the one who hired us for the wedding and paid out the deposit. I gave him the address of the restaurant so that he would send a car to pick both of us up.
If Fawzi locates and purchases the jewels today, give us a call at once. We don't want him walking the streets or riding that train with the jewels. We'll send the car to wherever you are.
Mr. Ghazali had instructed me in advance. I had insisted that it wasn't necessary. Mr. Ghazali insisted that it was. When I went to join Fawzi at our table, he was surrounded by the smoke from his cigarette and finishing off his Singa, a brand of Thai beer. I figured this was what Uma and his auntie Tamara had been discussing concerning Fawzi's losing his tradition, because Muslims don't drink alcohol. I didn't say nothing about it. How long have you been here living in America? I asked him, taking my seat. Let's see. I completed my BS and master's degree in 5 years at MIT. My PhD took only 2 years at Harvard. That's 7 years. Before that, were you living in the Sudan? I asked. No, I did boarding school in Switzerland, he said, matter-of-factly. The waiter interrupted. We placed our orders. And bring me another beer, Fawzi told him. So how was it being away from Sudan? Did you like it better? I asked. I do as my father says. When he sent me to a European boarding school, I was 12 years old. I graduated at the top of my class and got recruited on a full 5-year master's program scholarship to attend MIT at age 17. By the time I was 21, I graduated MIT and got recruited by a military firm in Massachusetts while completing my PhD at Harvard. Now I've been hired by a firm here in New York and am set to get started working there next month. Not bad, right? He asked, smiling and tapping his next cigarette on the tabletop, then lighting it up. And how did you meet your wife? She's from Sudan, right? I asked. Oh, I see. You want to talk about women, he smiled. You are living here in New York obeying your traditional Sudanese parents, and your balls are turning blue and you can't take it anymore. He cracked up with men's kind of laughter. You too are Muslim, a believer, right? I reminded him. He leaned back, balancing his weight now on only 2 legs on the 4-legged chair. He took a long drag from his cigarette and turned suddenly serious. You know, when I first began studying engineering, it was extremely difficult. Our professors would always tell us that most of us wouldn't make it. Never graduate. I didn't want to lose my academic scholarship either. I had to keep my grades up. My father required this also. I and a couple of my classmates would sit up sometimes for 3 or 4 nights in a row, crashing our brains together to solve just one math problem. Just looking for one right answer, he said, wondering in his own thoughts. That's how it was for me when I first left Sudan. Everything European and American seemed wrong, backward, crazy. At first, I would think about it real hard, and all of the time, I was searching for explanations and answers. In my heart, I am a Muslim man, yet they have a saying here in America that you may have heard before. When in Rome, do as the Romans do. Our waiter served our food, Fawzi Singa and my juice. Fawzi said, the only thing the Thai are missing is home-baked bread. I wish I had some asida now, he said, referring to a Sudanese bread that Uma makes so expertly. Living over here in the U.S., if you want to be respected, you need to acknowledge and accept the American God. And his name is money. Nothing matters more. All of their religion, rituals, and belief are entertainment, just something for them to say and not mean. Something to say to make them feel all right with themselves. Something they could squeeze into maybe 1 hour or 2 hours per week, and that's it. But every day, every hour, every minute, every second, they are awake and they are doing something, anything to make money. And when they are asleep, they are even dreaming about money. It is the opposite of Islam. America is the opposite of Sudan, where even if you are wealthy, you wake up to the call to prayer to praise Allah. You bend your knees in prayer 5 times in only 1 day. You stop everything and place Allah first. Back home we say it, we believe it, and we do it. We serve Allah. But believe me, brother, Fawzi said, gripping his fork and pressing it through the white tablecloth into the wooden table below, a nervous habit, I guessed. If you get in the way of this white man's money, they will kill you. They can do anything for money. I mean anything. I've seen their arsenal. I have even been part of a team that designed a few of their latest, deadliest items. They have weapons that can make you and your family evaporate into thin air. No one would ever know that any of you were ever here. He was getting too heavy for me. I really wanted to speak about females. You see, I'm drinking this beer. It's my second one today. I've learned to drink alcohol while living beside them. You have to. If you continually say, I don't drink, it makes them feel suspicious. They'll start asking you a lot of questions. Next thing you know, you'll be isolated and thrown aside, completely alone. They'll spread rumors that you are some kind of foreign guerrilla or terrorist even. It's crazy. And the American females I let in. Suddenly he relaxed and changed completely. Hey, they're a truckload of fun. They'll do anything, but they are garbage. So you have been with them? I asked, carefully moving towards my real questions. He laughed. Oh yes, he leaned in now. They began to suck my balls, so I let them. These American girls suck the stress out of my life, and I don't have to give them anything. I just speak politely and thank them for it. He laughed, seeming to reminisce. The first time it happened for me, I was a college freshman. The girl was too. She was from California, my lab partner. Late one night, 2 of the study guys fell asleep. She started caressing me and tugging on my zipper. When she got on her knees and put her lips on my big boy, oh, what a feeling! After that night, I was hooked. I just convinced myself it was okay to get it because it wasn't actually sex or even fornication. I didn't have to enter the woman's womb. He put his cigarette out, smashing it well after the fire was extinguished. So, do you fuck them or not? I asked. Never, he answered, with only one word and a solid, straight face. It was the shortest answer he had given to any one of my questions. I could never slip up and have to bring even one of them home to my family. My mother would die. My father would disown me. So I don't ever get myself into a position where any of them could get pregnant by me. Besides, the suck is good enough. Are you talking about the white girls or the black American females? I asked. They're all the same, the American women. I'll give you $10,000 if you can find one single virgin American female who is not a child. He was leaning forward and staring me dead in my eyes. Each of them should be made with an odometer on their foreheads like every car has. When you look at the high mileage on each of them, you wouldn't even want to be bothered. You won't find one virgin. And this is only one of the many reasons why my parents have found me a Sudanese bride. She is Muslim, cultured, raised properly, and yes, a virgin, of course. He leaned back, more relaxed now. I will see her for the first time this Thursday when she arrives in the U.S. along with her entire family. But even then, she will be in a niqab and hijab. Only her eyes will be available to me. For 3 minutes I sat there, my mind blown away at how he could put so much care and finance into a woman he had never seen. It must have been easy for him to read the rare, confused look plastered onto my face. I talked to her over the telephone for 6 months. She is 17 years young and so sweet, he emphasized. She studies music and plays the violin, and she reads a lot too. She reads books I don't ever get a chance to even look at. She prays for me and ridicules me when I miss saying my prayers, which is often. It's gotten so I can't get a good night's sleep without hearing her voice. My phone bill is so crazy you couldn't even imagine. Are you worried at all? I asked him seriously. He laughed again. Why don't you just ask straight out how the Americans would ask? You want to know what if she's ugly or fat or disappointing, right? I wasn't thinking that, but now that he mentioned it, it was a funny but good question. Well, she would never have gotten beyond my mother's inspection if she wasn't right for me. The two of them were all the time meeting in Sudan and talking, even writing letters to each other when Mom was traveling. My father approves of her too, and he always protects my interests. I trust their judgment completely. I am sure I will love her. I'm already very connected with her. After our wedding, she will belong to me forever. The waiter brought the check. I took it before he could lay it on the table. I took the balance plus $20 cash as a tip inside the billfold. Hey, if I ain't know any better, I would think you were planning a wedding for yourself also, he smiled. What age are you anyway, he asked. 14, I answered. Man, you had me fooled. 14 and you're still taller than me. He looked at me. 14. The year of curiosity, he said, seemingly speaking aloud to himself and remembering something. It seems like a Sudanese wife is a major expense, I said carefully. I knew it was true. She doesn't have to be. A lot depends on her class, her family background. If she is from a wealthy family, then she and her family would expect more. If she is a poor girl, she'll be happy with handmade jewelry and hand-picked flowers from her groom's backyard. If she's rich or poor, if she loves you, she'll follow you wherever you go, even into a mud hut, right? He said, tossing the question my way. What is shit to one man is fertilizer to another. He pulled out one more of his cigarettes. Your wife's family is wealthy then? I pushed. Not really, but if my family has it, why not give it to her? She'll become the mother of my children, Souljah. When I give her something, in some way, it still remains with me. It's still mine because she is mine. Besides, if she is happy, my life is so good. No intelligent man wants a miserable wife, he said, his cigarette dangling and unlit. Do you think living in this country might change your wife too? I asked him. No, she'll follow my lead. I will love her. She will care for our home. This will give her so much to do. Anything she wants, I will provide. I'll work for it. I will bring it home to her. My mother will stay on in the beginning and help her. Her auntie, a widow, will come and stay with us also. My wife will have one baby every year for 5 years, Souljah. And by the time my first child is 5, I will be set up in business in such a way that I will hire engineers to represent me here in the U.S. Then I will move with my family back to the Sudan, working my Sudanese office. This will be best for my daughters to be surrounded by the right kind of culture. But for now, there's trouble in the Sudan, political trouble. And political war is a bad time for earning money. No stability. Unless you are the man selling the weapons to everyone on all sides, he smiled. On that point, I became silent. There was no way for me to discuss Sudanese politics without mentioning my father. And eventually, anyone from the Sudan discussing the details of politics would have to mention my father too. I wasn't prepared for this side of the conversation. This is the reason I rarely ask questions, because when it came my turn to give up answers, I would refuse. He finally struck the match. The fire burned down almost to his fingers before he actually lit his cigarette. You are more mature than I was at your age. You are already a businessman. I could tell that whatever you want, eventually you will have it. Islam is good. In fact, there is nothing better. But here in America, you have to have 2 faces if you want to succeed. One you show them. The other you show only to those whom you love. Riding in the car, reviewing his words, I could catch the cracks in his story. Easily, I could point out his contradictions. But I liked the fact that the things he said seemed to be what he really believed, based on some experiences that he actually had. And he didn't try to cover up his flaws. Chapter 26. Hyped up real strong. That's how Amir and Chris showed up at the dojo. My whole team is crazy, Amir said. You should see these guys at practice trying to fuck each other up while we trying to run the practice game. We got 3 East New Yorkers and a couple of dudes from the Hook. They be trying to settle beefs on the gym floor. I be telling them, look, sons, we're on the same motherfucking team. How we gonna get this paper if all you're doing is brawling? Amir had his arms stretched out and his eyes were excited. He loved that type of chaos, even though he knew it wasn't a winning strategy. He continued. Finally, Coach just told some bench riders, go guard the doors. Don't let nobody in. Then he made the East duke it out with the Hook. These kids was beating the shit out of each other, slamming each other around like it wasn't nothing. I was straight laughing. I said, this ain't no fucking basketball team. Later, the 3 kids from the East posted me up in the rusty-ass locker room, talked about, you a motherfucking perpetrator. Like I was supposed to jump in and hold them down, 'cause I'm from the East too. I told them straight up, I ain't got no beef with the Hook. Everybody in the East know that out here on these streets, unless we bonded by blood or money, it's every man for himself. Oh, so we 3 is only bonded by money? Chris challenged. We're brothers. We're family. We know how that go, Amir said. How's your team looking? I asked Chris. We aight, but we need that spark, that fire, you know, he said. Then you gotta bring the heat. You be the spark. Let them rally around you. I amped him up, truly believing that he did have what it takes to hold his own in a leadership position. Word to life, Amir agreed. Amir borrowed $25 from me. I'll give it back to you on Thursday night when we take the girls out, he promised. It ain't nothing, I told him. Yeah, I'm trying to get where you at, where $25 ain't nothing, he smiled. You could have borrowed against our car fund, Chris said, like a real banker. Yeah, I could always borrow from our car fund, but the 3 of us can't fit on a mini bike together. If I keep borrowing from the car fund, that's what it's gonna be. A motherfucking tricycle or a mini bike. Later that night, I practiced throwing my shuriken against the corkboard in my room. I wasn't sure if Sensei was planning to test me at weapons training the next day, but if he did, I planned to be well planned. Tuesday morning after prayer, I was on the move. I had to do business errands before my 12 o'clock weapons training class. I flew through the dojo doors in a hurry. Sensei required all of his students to be on time. Once I got inside, the whole vibe switched up. Sensei's energy was calming. I slowed my breathing and put my belongings in the locker. Sensei had tea brewing, which was unusual. He seemed to want to talk. After we exchanged greetings, he said, "Pour yourself some tea. Today we are going to begin by discussing vulnerabilities." "The eyes, the larynx, the pelvis, the knees, the ankles," I said, assuring him that I had studied and retained the information. There was no need for review. "Very good," Sensei said. "But today we are not focusing on physical vulnerabilities. We are focusing on emotional vulnerabilities. Just as a ninja must know where on the body to attack, he must also learn when it's the best time to attack his opponent to achieve complete success." Sensei's use of the word success triggered a thought in me about Fozzie. "Sensei-san, one question please," I said, then continued. "We are here for weapons training. What would you say if another man said to you that he works for a military weapons company and that he has weapons which could completely wipe out your entire existence as though you were never ever born? Would it make you feel like everything we are doing here is nothing? It will reinforce my understanding of Sun Tzu's teaching. War is deception. You see, an opponent who can attack your mind and disable your confidence and skill has won before you have ever thrown one weapon, one kick, one fist. This person who flaunts his military superiority over you or your people is trying to immerse you in fear. He knows and they know that fear will guarantee their success and your defeat. They will have conquered you in your mind first to minimize their chances of losses on their end. And what if these deadly weapons they say they have are real?" I asked. "Most probably they are real. Men had devoted centuries worth of time to perfecting machines of destruction, bombs, missiles, even chemical warfare. Yet even though some countries have these weapons, they have gone to war against people who have no fear of death, but have the spirit of determination, love of preserving their future, and the power of being on the right side of truth. When a mass of people has this, the training that I am offering you is the same training that they will need. If properly trained, people who seem to have no chance of victory can disarm their invaders, strip them of their weapons, and use their own weapons against them. They can even set traps, use the elements to their advantage, or appear to be passive while poisoning their opponents. For survival, they can do anything. This has happened before in Vietnam and Korea and other places. Let me recommend a book to you." He reached for his pad and pencil. He paused as if going back into his mind. He wrote down Dien Bien Phu by General Zapp. In Vietnam and Korea, a lot of good men were defeated too, I supposed, and asked at the same time while looking at the title of the book Sensei had written down on the paper for me. "Yes, of course. In war, there are always losses. The victor is the one who can cut his losses when compared to the losses of his enemy and emerge with the possibility of rebuilding his team or village or civilization according to his beliefs, philosophies, culture, and interests," Sensei stated. A Buddhist friend of mine would ask, "What is death?" If the idea survives, then the dead live. Sensei smiled a rare smile. I heard the voice of my father woven in those words somewhere. Although my father, the scientist, was even more specific and precise, but since Sensei's words had components of what my father might say, if he were standing right here, right now, I respected Sensei's opinion. It seemed that our talk motivated Sensei. He went about the 2-hour training with intense enthusiasm and care. I listened intently when he taught me the importance of knowing when to attack an opponent. He describes a man's emotional vulnerabilities as happiness, sadness, sexual arousal, and altered states of mind. Sensei said, if an attack can be properly planned and launched when a man's mind is altered by the emotion of happiness, for example, at the birth of his child or at the excitement of a sporting event or at a party, he is an easy, vulnerable target. Sensei said, if an attack can be properly planned and launched when a man's mind is altered by the emotion of sadness, for example, a funeral, or at the moment of great financial loss, or during illness, he is an easy and vulnerable target. Sensei said, if an attack can be properly planned and launched when a man's mind is altered by the emotion and action of sexual arousal, for example, while watching the sexual display, pursuing sex, or having sex, he is an easy and vulnerable target. Sensei said, if an attack can be launched while a man's mind is in a self-induced altered state, for example, while drinking alcohol, smoking opium, or using drugs, his defeat by any ninja is certain. Sensei did not waste even one of his words on me. I listened. I understood. I locked them into my memory. After a half hour of talk, we went into action. I learned the art of the rope. Sensei instructed me on how to tie and bind a man in such a way that if a man tried to become untied, his own movements would cause him further injury instead of escape. It was deep. Sensei dragged out of his closet a life-size dummy to demonstrate. I watched him tie it down, each precise move, loop, and pull. He did it twice. Then he asked me to tie up the dummy in the same manner. As I got my chance, I replayed the process he used in my mind. It was as though I had Sensei's fingers caught in the close-up of a powerful movie camera lens. I tied the dummy the same way I had seen Sensei tie it. My eyes were looking from the dummy to Sensei, from Sensei to the dummy. Yet Sensei's silence made me doubt whether I had done it correctly. Breaking his silent pause, Sensei asked, "What is the problem in this lesson?" I thought for a moment. I kept staring at the dummy, looking for mistakes in my method. After careful review, I was sure that I tied it perfectly. Still, I paused. I admitted that I did not know the answer. Sensei answered for me. The problem here is that a ninja must always expect the unexpected. Therefore, the enemy who you are tying down will not be a dummy. Sensei pushed me with force. Small hand, small man. Still, I fell from the force. It was my mind that was off guard. Your enemy will be trying to fight you, Sensei said, kicking me. I pulled my body out of his way, yet I was still on the floor at a disadvantage. Your enemy will be trying to destroy you to free himself, Sensei said, attacking. He will not be still like this dummy. He will be moving and responding to your every move, Sensei said, still striking me. Now I felt like the dummy. I got my head together to fight back against the master teacher. Within 13 minutes, he outfought me, had me down, constrained me, and then bound me to the chair. Then he smiled. You made 2 major mistakes, he said calmly, not even seeming like someone who had fought an opponent bigger and taller than himself for a prolonged amount of time. First, You failed to survive my sneak attack. Panic can have fatal consequences. Panic shuts down your thought process and renders you useless. He lifted up his teapot. Second, you showed your opponent too much respect, and it led to your defeat. When you fight, every time, you must think and move and fight to win. He had me sit there, tied up, while he poured himself a second cup of tea. Chapter 27. I was tight for the rest of the day. I had nobody to be mad at other than myself, so I followed through on handling my business as usual. At 7 p.m., I showed up for a scheduled basketball practice on the outdoor court outside of the high school gym where we usually practice. I don't think Vega was worried too much about us sweating inside of the hot-ass gym. I don't think he moved us outside to enjoy the spring breeze. By moving us outside, he put us under the pressure of performance for the random spectators who showed up to watch. No player minded getting barked on at practice in front of his teammates, but no player wanted to get barked on outside in front of the hood. I saw that it did cause a couple of our players to step up their effort and their game. Ever since the clocks were pushed forward by an hour for the spring season, the sunlight lasted much longer than it had during the winter months. That night at 9 p.m., right as the sky gray got overtaken by the blackness, the temperature dropped by 10 degrees and she came running in with the night breeze. She crashed into the metal fence that surrounded the ball court and then whistled like a man. She caught everybody's attention.
"I want to talk to you,"
she said. Most of the players who had just finished packing up started heading over towards her. I stood still.
"Not all, y'all. Don't even try it,"
she said boldly.
"He knows who I'm talking about."
A couple of players looked back. Panama stepped up from the rear saying, "Who else but the team captain?" He started to move towards the fence where she was leaning now, with her breasts pressed against the wires. "Panama," I called out. "She's looking for me, my bad," I said. They all turned back around, going on about their business. Practice was over now anyway. Walking over towards the fence, I asked her, "You looking for trouble?" She smiled and said,
"I'm looking for midnight."
"Why are you always calling me?" I asked her.
"Why you never calling me?"
she asked.
"I gave you my number."
"What would you have done if the rest of the team came to meet you at the fence? What then?" I asked her.
"Then I would have waited for you to look out for me just like you did,"
she said, smiling.
"Besides, I got 2 legs. I would have ran. They would have to get around this fence first. They wouldn't have never caught up with me. I'm fast. I would have dashed right down that side alley."
She pointed.
"They don't know that way. That's my secret. Then I would have ended up right at my bedroom window."
She smiled. All I could do was laugh. She was so excited telling her little story to me. I walked her home because it was dark. She had a bag, and she had already drawn too much attention onto herself. I really couldn't guarantee what Panama had in mind.
"I know you got a girlfriend,"
she said, walking. Before I could say anything, she threw her hands over her 2 ears, closed her eyes, and started saying,
No. Don't tell me. Don't answer."
When she opened them up and noticed I wasn't saying nothing, she pulled her hands down. "You're crazy," I told her, and meant it.
"It's okay, because if you would have met me first, I know what would have happened,"
she said, looking at me with a side glance. "What would have happened?" I asked her.
"You know."
She smiled even harder. "What?" I asked.
"You know."
She started jumping up and down in place, then stomped her foot.
"Instead of me looking for you, you would have been looking for me."
She struck a pose. I kept walking and carrying her bag.
"If I stop walking, you gotta stop walking too. You don't even know where my house is,"
she said, challenging me now with both of her hands on her hips. Yes, I do, I said, still facing forward. You already told me. I kept walking. I waited in the alley under the only ground-level window. For 2 minutes, I held her lightweight groceries before she showed up. It was a dark, narrow path between 2 4-story brownstones. I heard her hurried footsteps approaching. I was thinking she must have figured out that her temper tantrum didn't work on me. I handed her the bag. I doubled back and disappeared. I could hear her calling out her phone number. 718. All I could do was laugh. The girl was nuts, but a little prank loosened me from my fury at my fighting failures of the day. Late night, I wanted to hear the sound of Akemi's voice on my voicemail. Out of 9 business messages, not one was from her. I would have been satisfied hearing her say one word. Her silence wasn't pushing me away. Every day I didn't see or speak to her, my interests, thoughts, and feelings were just escalating. Shower and a fresh cut. I cleaned up nice on Thursday. All brand new. I was wearing my suede, Ralph Lauren dress shirt, polo jeans, and even cracked open a fresh pair of dark brown leather low boots with the gold buckle. I was going to the Palace, an elite hotel in Manhattan, where they dressed the doormen up like fools so the rich could be sure by looking at them that they were definitely the servants. Fawzi was staying in his hotel for the next 10 days in a room that was actually an entire apartment. There was a kitchen, living room, a master bedroom, and 3 bedrooms, and 3 bathrooms. The apartment even had a separate doorbell that chimed. Following Uma's instructions, I was delivering his new bride's new dress, the one she would wear to the mosque for the signing of the marriage contract. I had the scented garment hanging and wrapped and nicely placed in a long silver garment bag. I took a taxi to the hotel to avoid having the garment tossed and crushed on an overcrowded morning train. I thought about how Fawzi, a Sudanese groom, was responsible to provide everything for his Sudanese bride, and I mean everything. I was to deliver the dress to him so that he could present it to the bride's mother, along with each item they had already negotiated and agreed upon, including the jewelry. Monetary sums would also change hands from Fawzi's father to the bride's father. Everything the bride received, according to our traditions, would become hers. It is not proper in Islam to take back anything a husband has granted to his wife in the contract. But I guess Fawzi, right now, in some small way, whatever he gave to his wife remained with him because she would remain with him forever. I was relieved to hand a garment in perfect condition over to him. Afterwards, I had to hurry to collect deposits on 2 Uma-designed side orders, which customers had placed with the understanding that because of the wedding account we were involved in, they would have a longer wait than usual. While working, I ran across an odd little place called the Helium Hub. Since it looked like an interesting business with unique offerings, I walked up in there. I would at least collect a business card from them and drop off one of our cards as well. Inside, there were 3 walls covered with uninflated new balloons of every imaginable color. Every 2 inches of wall had a different colored balloon sample pinned up. How many colors? I asked the lady up front.
We have 240 different colors. That's 3 times the amount of colors offered in the deluxe Crayola crayon box. Each balloon is 50 cents, except if you buy in bulk, which is an order of 100 or more balloons. Then it's 25 cents each.
She smiled. 100 balloons, I repeated, skeptical.
You'd be surprised. Some businesses and events order tons of them. They make a plain place look exciting, and women and children love them.
Looking around, I figured they had to be selling something besides balloons to turn a real profit. Although I could see from the extremely small size of the space that the rent they were paying couldn't be too much. What else you selling? I asked the lady.
Just balloons,
she answered.
but our balloons are filled with a special helium solution. The balloons from the other stores will die out in about an hour or two, while ours will last for 48 hours or more,
she said. 48 hours, I repeated. I ended up ordering 100 balloons from their elite line, the psychedelic ones with the crazy colors that I knew she would like. They would match her strange stockings and tights. They cost double the price of the basic colors. There were also a $25 service fee for the short guy whose job was to pump 'em up. Then there was the $25 delivery charge to have the balloons delivered to New Jersey, where Akemi was staying for the week. I was starting to see how the helium hub made their profit. But I didn't care about the money. I wasn't going to walk around the city holding a bunch of balloons like some kind of clown. Yet, I grabbed the opportunity to do something special that she could feel. Once she received them, I would invite her to come over to the Ajid ceremony with me on Saturday. Uma wanted to meet her, and Naja was going to be there too, so it meant the world to me.
Each balloon will be knotted and then tied with 3 colorful twisted ribbons,
the lady said, after collecting my information and my money and completing my receipt.
Would you like to write anything on the card? It's complimentary with your delivery.
She pointed to the small card collection in the counter case. I chose a lavender-colored gift card and wrote inside, Akemi, I would like you to meet my family on this Saturday at 5 o'clock. If you say yes, I'll come and get you from wherever you are and bring you back safely afterwards. Mayonaka. I knew it would be her cousin reading the note out loud to her or someone else in her family, so I wanted it to be short and simple and decent. Then I would wait for her or someone in her family to give me a call and hopefully a favorable answer. In the evening, I showed up on the Deuce to meet with Chris and Amir and their girls as promised. 42nd Street was all lit up and bursting with people and tourists, same as it would be late into the night, same as it would be almost 24 hours a day. Our meetup spot, the arcade, was 3 floors of fun for teens and tourists and con men and pimps looking for teens and tourists. In New York, that was unavoidable. It just came with the territory. Chris was inside the picture booth behind the curtain with his girl. I recognized him by his kicks. Homegirl was alone and bent over on the pinball machine. Her face changed as soon as she saw me roll up.
I thought you was going to leave me hanging,
was her greeting to me after all of this time. Is that what I should have done? I asked her.
Oh, and you got a smart mouth,
she said. Did you show up to watch, or do you want to play? I asked her.
Yeah, let's do the air hockey. I'm good at that,
she said. I put the dollar in. We grabbed our handles and started slamming that plastic puck around like our lives depended on it. She was mean on the table. I imagined she was looking at that puck like it was me. She was banging that shit with a vengeance. Every time she leaned in, those 34 double D's bubbled out of her Dan-skin body shirt. I could see the white body powder in her cleavage. She had her leather belt drawn right around her small waist and wore jeans that couldn't restrain that ass. I was part playing the game, part checking her out. Her 10-carat gold knocker earrings dangling from her ears. She rocked Reeboks. As I looked around the place, every teenage female had on the same thing. Tight jeans, tees, and kicks. Nice-looking bodies, okay faces, but not a lot of originality, style, or variety. I thought to myself, I could pick up any one of these girls. It seemed like no matter what, I'd end up with the same damn thing. After a while, I let her win the game, but didn't tell her that.
I told you I was good,
she said, grinning. Let's play Pac-Man, she suggested. I followed her over, not really interested in the little girly game. I dropped in 2 quarters and she pushed 2 players. She got ate up real quick because she couldn't be calm and steady. Pac-Man is a simple game of nerves. All 6 of us ended up lined up side by side, driving the race cars against one another. I don't know about the girls, but me, Amir, and Chris was definitely competing to run each other off the road and race to the finish line. Chris had his hands gripped tight on the steering wheel, his face all screwed up like this shit was for real. He was in the zone like he gets in a good basketball game. Amir was serious at first, then lost focus, laughing at Redbone, whose car was crashing into everything, including the walls, and even driving backwards from the finish line. Homegirl was looking over at me when Chris won the race.
Let's go somewhere and get something to eat,
Redbone said. Chris jumped in immediately and said, "Pizza!" Me and Amir both laughed, knowing this cat was constantly concerned about the budget. At the pizza store, Chris slid his girl some money and a motherfucking buy one, get one free coupon. He told her, "Get 2 pies and drinks." We laughed again. The girls went up to get the food. We hung back and took the chance to talk. "What's the plan?" I asked. "We're taking him to the 7:45 p.m. show at the Royale. The seats lean back," Amir said, smiling. "I bought a bag of candy in case they ask for something," Chris said, cracking up. "Damn, you can't break down and buy her a bucket of popcorn?" I asked him. "Not when I could get 20 pieces of candy for $1 and popcorn at the movies cost $5, he said. "You're too cheap, man," Amir barked. "The more I save, the more we save. You'll be thanking me later when we're taking turns driving our new Testarossa." "Word up," I agreed. Homegirl and Redbone came back with 2 pies. Chris's girl carried the drinks in a cardboard tray. I sat there, staring at the 2 pork pepperoni pizzas before I just stood up and walked away from the table. I'm thinking that Redbone and Amir been together now for a minute. She been chilling at his house and him at hers. He been bringing her around to all our spots. Didn't she know he considered himself a Muslim and that we don't eat no goddamn pork? I wasn't hungry anyway. Still, I didn't want to sit over the pig on the pie. I realized these chicks didn't really know us. Even if we explained ourselves to them, they either wouldn't understand or wouldn't care. Or better yet, would think we was on some bullshit. I heard Homegirl ask her friends,
"What the fuck is wrong with him now?"
Chris jumped up and grabbed the 2 round trays with the pies untouched and took them back to the counter. Next thing I know, an argument broke out between Chris and the guy up front. The angry Italian was refusing to take back the pies. "Once the pie leaves the counter, it's yours," he barked. Me and Amir stepped up. As soon as he saw us coming, he picked up his telephone receiver and threatened to call the police. The girls ran up, talking about,
"What's wrong, y'all? There ain't nothing wrong with this pizza."
Each of the 3 of them grabbed a slice for themselves and started chomping. The angry Italian hung up the phone. Now the girls were sitting with the pork pies back at the table. We fellas were still standing, our jaws tight, estimating what could be done about the rude Italian. I knew the girls thought they was helping us stay out of a fight or from getting arrested, but I was burning anyway. "Forget it. They didn't know," Amir said, defending the girls. "I can order one without the meat. Nobody told them to put pepperonis on them anyway," Chris said. "Nah, I'm good," I told them. "I'm not hungry." We went back to join them at the table. I sat sideways in the chair, just cooling out my temper. Homegirl was staring at me outright. Redbone was getting her secret glances on. Then they would signal each other. None of it mattered to me. At the movies, I hung back and got some popcorn and a Coke. When I walked inside, I seen everybody was paired off and seated in separate rows and sections. I handed the popcorn and a drink to Homegirl.
"Thanks,"
she said. In the dark theater, Chris and his girl, and Amir and his girl got it on. For them, it didn't matter what the fuck was on the screen. After just 10 minutes, homegirl got real aggravated. For some reason, she started squirming in her chair and looking around. She wasn't interested in the film, I guessed. She started exhaling real hard, then folded her hands across her body. I looked at her. She was rolling her eyes. I don't know what she was thinking, but I was thinking, to me, she was average. Her personality didn't shine through. She had a little nasty attitude, and her conversations had my mind wandering off all over the place. Redbone's face was buried in Amir's lap. As he leaned back in the flexible theater seats, her head was bobbing up and down. I thought to myself, no wonder this brother was pushing so hard for me to get with homegirl. If I wasn't here to keep her out of Redbone's face, he would have lost out.
Can I say something to you?
Homegirl asked. Talk, I told her.
What the fuck did I ever do to you?
She asked. I don't know what you're talking about, I answered calmly. But I could tell without even turning my head towards her that she was getting real wound up.
Since you first met me, you've been acting like you too good for me. What's up with that?
You don't really want to know, I told her, still calm.
If I didn't want to know, I wouldn't even ask.
She shot back with an attitude. When I first met you, you was with some other dudes, I told her.
So?
She said.
I didn't know you yet.
You didn't know them either, I answered her. She sat quiet for a minute. Then after you was with them, you switched up and rolled with us, I reminded her.
So, your man like my girl,
she explained. Right, was all I answered.
Right what?
She asked with fury. He picked her. Chris picked your other girl. But I didn't pick you, I said calmly. She didn't have no quick response. I told you you didn't really want to know, I said. After a few seconds, she asked,
if I wouldn't have been with them other niggas first, and you just met up with us like a coincidence, would you have picked me?
Nah, I told her.
Why?
She screamed. A couple of people in the theater turned around saying, shh, loudly. Relax, I told her. Then I didn't say nothing else.
Why the fuck not?
She asked, getting loud all over again. I'm not saying nothing else. You're getting too crazy, I told her. She stood up and in one unexpected motion dumped the Coke and emptied the popcorn box on me. As I sat there drenched in soda syrup and popcorn butter, I saw myself standing up and choking the shit out of her. I didn't have to be able to see my Ralph Lauren suede shirt to know that it was ruined. Now I'll have to throw away a garment that cost me 2 weeks' pay. The Coke was all over the already dirty movie theater floor, mixing with the dirt and grease and making the paste on the bottom and sides and in the ridges of my low boots. But my father told me, never beat a woman. If she gets crazy, just restrain her. I thought about his words, and I thought about getting out of there before this chick got so loud that next thing I would be up against the wall getting patted down by the popo. Amir and Chris was on their way towards us. I got up calmly and told them, don't even worry about it. I knew I didn't want to fuck with this crazy broad. I'll check y'all tomorrow. I moved to roll out, and homegirl stuck both her feet forward to block my path. I stepped over her and left. Back on the deuce, wearing a wet and stained shirt in the night chill of spring, I walked right into a nearby narrow Army and Navy store. I picked out a new crispy green Army shirt and pants and popped the tags and put them on. At the register, I paid cash and regretfully dropped the Ralph Lauren and my wife beater into the steel wastebasket. Outside, I cleaned my boots off with a bunch of napkins and bottled water I copped from a Frank stand. Chapter 28. A lot of cats were milling on my Brooklyn block that night. Springtime brings everybody out who was either hibernating or hiding for the winter. I was walking through on a humble, home much earlier than I planned to be, maneuvering to stay out of any one guy's path or clique. Still, I was watching, catching everything going on my left and my right, as well as directly in front of me. Of course, I seen Kelvin, a.k.a. Conflict, hosting an outside conference in the corner in the dark. I had noticed his black Camry first, with the white leather interior, and the big Mercedes-Benz sticker he had plastered across his back window. Daquan was standing with him in a tight circle of four, his brand new Kawasaki bike parked close by with one of his brothers standing on post to make sure nobody fucked with it. Conflict broke his quiet conversation off and called me over. Instinctively, I ran my hand over my Caesar cut, paused for a minute, then walked over slowly. They all slanted inwards, converting their circle into a semicircle with everybody facing me. Conflict was doing all the talking. "I see you wearing fatigues tonight," he said. I didn't respond because it wasn't a question, and what the fuck did he want anyway? His 10-carat so-called gold hanging from his neck was a poorly crafted pendant of a gun. "Are you a soldier?" he asked me. "What's up? What you call me over for?" I asked him solemnly. He broke a half smile. The other three of them, including Ronald and Roland Smash, were straight-faced. "Nah, you ain't no soldier, 'cause soldiers know how to get in line," he said. Daquan cut in. "Nah, man, he good. Little man is good," he said firmly. "You still calling him little man, and now he's bigger than you," Conflict reprimanded. The other two laughed. I remained solid. "This man is about to spread his wings and take flight," Conflict said to the three of them. "If you don't want nothing, I'm gonna push on," I told Conflict. "You checking them out?" he asked the other three. I folded my arms in front of me and looked Conflict in the eye. My green army shirt rose up a little so the metal on my piece could flash a warning into his eye. I knew he was holding. I knew Daquan was holding. I could see Rollin was holding too. They were all 9 or 10 years older than me, but my 9 milli made us even. "I see how you walk through here styling every day. What I don't see is how and where you're earning," Conflict said, sporting his 2-piece corduroy lease suit and brown suede wallabies. "So," I answered, "this is my hood. I hold it down. You should already know that. Anybody earning out here gotta run it through me. You know what I mean?" he threatened. "I got a job. I ain't hustling," I said dryly. There was a pause and a standoff. "What about a woman?" he asked out of left field. "Every time I see you, you're for self. You got some sugar in your tank?" he asked, still serious-faced. "What?" I asked, not knowing what he was asking me. Ronald and Roland busted out laughing. Daquan and me remained silent and straight-faced. "Gad, man," Conflict said to me, "and stay in your lane." I pushed off knowing one thing. This dude, who acted like he already had the best of everything, was hiding some kind of jealousy towards me. He was like a nervous, deadly, and dangerous rattlesnake. I knew he had plenty of bodies under his belt. In fact, he was one of the main cats raising the corpse count in our building. In the jungle, a rattler, python, mamba, and boa are all poisonous creatures. A tap from the tooth, a too tight squeeze, and death comes quickly. But as my grandfather would say long ago, there is a mongoose for every snake, a hyena for every lion. Never underestimate anyone. Upstairs, Naja heated up the dinner that Uma had prepared and put to the side for me. She served it out nicely and sat beside me while I ate. Uma was in the living room placing finishing touches on a few items.
So, how are you feeling?
My little sister asked, smiling. I'm good. What about you? I asked, turning it back around.
Oh, your life is so much more exciting than mine,
she said, knowingly. I smiled. Is that right? Tell me all about it, I asked her, since she looked like she knew something I was supposed to know but didn't.
Somebody came looking for you today,
she said. Who? I asked, surprised.
Somebody came up to our door.
Somebody came up to our door? I asked again.
No, she came down to Miss Marcy's place,
Naja admitted. Miss Marcy? She let somebody in her place? I asked, concerned for real.
Miss Marcy was asleep when the girl knocked on the door,
Naja said.
I opened the door for her and she came inside.
That couldn't have been what happened because you know better than to open anybody's door. You know not to speak to strangers or let them in the house. I know you know. I taught you that, I said, growing tight.
She's not a stranger. She spoke to me 3 or 4 times before, on the way to the bus stop sometimes, but usually after school,
Naja said. And where is Miss Marcy when all of this is going on? I asked her.
She says hello to Miss Marcy too. Every time she asks about you, she likes you a lot.
Naja added. Give me her name and stop playing around, I said firmly.
She has a strange name, Heavenly Paradise. Isn't that the same thing?
Naja asked.
Aren't heaven and paradise the same place?
She asked again.
I know in the Quran, heaven and paradise are the same place.
What did she ask you?
Once she asked if you had any girlfriends. I told her no. Then she asked what school you go to. I told her I didn't know the name of your school. That's not a lie, is it?
Anything else? I pressed.
She asked how old are you? She asked how come you're never home. She asked if me and her could be friends. Today she asked if I could give you something for her.
Naja said. Is that it? I asked, wanting to collect all of the information while Naja still remembered it clearly.
1 minute, I'll go and get the letter.
Naja dashed to her room. She returned.
Here, Heavenly said to give this to you. She said to make sure nobody else sees it.
She handed me the envelope. I opened it and read,
I'm ready to make you my God. Stop fronting and come see me. Apartment AF. Peace.
It was signed, Heaven on Earth. Even without her signature, I would have known it was her by the words she chose. The 5% of females cover themselves with what they called 3/4 of cloth. But what difference did it make if she was covered and still living foul?
What does the letter say?
Naja asked. Don't worry about it, I answered. Just sit down right here so I can tell you the rules again. You have to listen carefully to what I say. It's for the security of our family. Do you understand? I asked Naja seriously.
That's not all.
Naja said strangely. What? I asked.
Heavenly gave me a gold chain. She put it on my neck so I wouldn't lose it. She made me promise to give it to you and no one else.
She said sweetly. Where is it? I asked, worried about how the story kept spreading out more and more.
Uma has it.
Naja answered. She might as well have hit me on the head with a brick.
Heavenly said to give her chain to you, and if you wear it, then you're her God, and she's your earth, and she's my sister. She said, if you don't want my chain, you should bring it back to my apartment and only give it back to me in my hand. She asked me to tell her what you said the next time me and her talked together.
Naja sat there really seeming like she thought Heavenly was a friend. I wanted to tell her that no 17-year-old girl is gonna hang out with a 7-year-old child who she's not related to.
I wasn't gonna mention anything about the necklace to Uma because Heavenly said not to, but when I took off my hijab, I wasn't really thinking about the chain. Uma saw the necklace right away. Then I had to tell Uma the whole story.
Naja said, looking worried that she had gotten me into some trouble. Listen, Naja, this girl is not your friend, and she's not mine either. None of these people around here are our friends. None of these people around here are like us. They don't believe what we believe. They don't live how we live. If you love this family, then you have to understand what I'm about to tell you. You have to understand the rules, and you have to remember. And there is no space and no time for any mistakes, understand?
Yes,
she answered, with tears now falling from her big eyes onto her little face. I love you. Uma loves you. That's it. Your friends are your same age. The little girls who go to your same school only. Anyone who asks you to keep a secret is not your friend. There are no secrets for you to keep away from Uma and me. Miss Marcy is your sitter. She is supposed to take you to your bus every morning and pick you up every afternoon. If she is ever not there when your school bus drops you off, remain with Sister Fatima, your bus monitor. She knows to call Uma in any emergency situation. Don't go anywhere with anybody else. No matter what. Don't talk to anybody else. Don't take anything from anybody else. No matter what. In Miss Marcy's house, and even if you're up here in our apartment, don't open the door. Keep it locked. Always let an adult answer the door or leave it alone. No secrets with anyone outside of our family. No one. No matter what. You got it? I asked her seriously.
I got it.
Naja promised. Now repeat it, I told her.
The whole thing?
She asked. The whole thing, I ordered her. She repeated it, and repeated it well. She was no dummy. In her school, she had to learn long surahs from the Holy Quran. After she learned them, and the teachers discussed them, she had to recite them in front of her classmates. I made her recite the rules back to me 3 times. Then I sat her down so she could write them out as well. In her room, I had her post her writing up on the wall above her bed. Uma finished up around 1 a.m. After straightening up her work area, she came into my room. I had spread newspaper across an area of my floor. On top of the newspaper, I had the 1s, 5s, 10s, and $20 bills separated. In another area, I had separate piles of coins. In another pile were the receipts I carried for the day, a pile of new orders and inquiries, a short stack of new business cards, and my thin notebook of contacts, phone numbers, and addresses.
Who is she, and what does she want?
Uma asked, holding up the 14-karat gold chain with the word heavenly written out in script letters at the center. She's nobody, I answered. She's nobody to me, I assured Uma.
Every female is somebody,
Uma said solemnly.
Every female you involve yourself with leaves her trace on you, good or bad. Did you encourage her?
Uma asked. Uma, my word to Allah, I said nothing, did nothing with this female.
Then she is a desperate woman, and desperate women set traps. Make sure you don't lower yourself to her.
I was disappointed. I worked very hard for Uma to trust that there is no greater love or respect than the love and respect that I have for her. And now it seemed that this one silly girl had brought in the only moment of doubt about my character that Uma had ever felt. At least I understood now what kind of problem conflict had with me. Like the sucker he was, he couldn't keep his girl in check. Did he really believe he could eliminate every cat she craved? There were many before him, and he obviously wasn't even the end of her line. Even if he tried, her cravings will still be there. Then what would he do? As for the small matter of her chain, damned if I move, damned if I don't move. If I don't give it back, she'd come on to me even stronger. If I brought it back to her, somebody would see me at her door and start sounding the alarm. Either way, word would get out that she was thirsty for me. Someone would lie and say I was fucking with her. Word of mouth in the hood is stronger than the beat of the drum in my grandfather's village. All I could see was more conflict with conflict for no real reason at all. Alright folks, we have reached the moment where we gotta take a pause for the cause because I'm gonna need you folks to tune in to the next edition of Ralph Reads. I would like or rather love to thank you queens and kings, fellow royalty, for stopping by. You may connect with me via Facebook. Send a friend request to Ralph Anthony Garcia on Twitter and Instagram at RGMC2407. Send an email to rgmc2407@gmail.com, where if you would like to leave a small donation, please use the Zelle app or paypal.me/RGMC2407 or Cash App. My cash tag is RGMC2407. You may also connect with me on my other channel, the music channel, RGMC, Ralph Garcia, Master of Ceremonies, and right here on TURN. Tell a friend to tune in to the United Ronin Networks. We are Ronin. Fellow royalty, pick up a good book, read a good story, and set your good self free. I appreciate you and I love you like cooked food. I will see you folks on the continuation of this Sister Souljah's mini-series on the next edition of Ralph Reads. Folks, you gotta keep it real. You know you gotta stay low. Folks, be safe out there and take care.